Most business owners are completely drowning in their own success. They go incredibly hard on sales and marketing to acquire new customers and grow like crazy. But the issue is they don't think about what comes next. And that turns out to be pure chaos. Constantly juggling the different schedules of your employees in your own head, worried about projects being delayed because someone took a sick day out of the blue. And the worst part of it all is that if you step away for even just 1 week, everything comes crashing down. We've seen it time and time again. But after we discovered this one systematic approach, we've used it to help scale our operations and keep everyone productive, regardless if they decide to go out of office for the day. So in this video, I'm going to show you the steps you need to take to build a business that truly runs without you so you can focus on scaling your operations instead. The first thing you need to work on is the foundation. And here's where most business owners get it wrong. They think that they have a business, but in reality, they just have a very exhaustive list of to-dos. Every day, they're constantly caught in the weeds, whether it's worrying about invoices being sent, following up with current customers, trying to sign deals, getting marketing assets out the door, etc. You feel like you're very productive, but in reality, you're just holding everything back. Why? Because the second you disappear as a business owner, everything else falls apart. And therein lies the difference between task management and business architecture. Think of it like building a tent versus building a house. A tent is perfect for that weekend getaway as you can set it up quickly. But of course, when things go wrong, you're worried that's going to come crumbling apart and probably have to hold it up. Versus a house, yes, that takes longer, more planning, more resources. But once it's put into place, you can leave the house at any time. And that's what you need to do with your business. You need to make it the house and not a tent. And here's another pro tip for you. A lot of entrepreneurs confuse using tools or software as a system. And I'm sorry, but using a Monday.com board or some other tool does not count as a project management system. Systems are comprised of not just tools and software, but processes, documents, people, and they all need to be interconnected. Having proper project management software means that people know what they're doing, it's written somewhere, it's documented, and yes, software can help smooth things out and make things simpler, but it shouldn't be living in your own memory bank. Without these systems in place, you're stuck forever in task chasing mode and you're not building the architecture that you need to leave. Here's a quick test that you can run. If you can't even leave your own business for 24 hours, you know it's not a question of hard work, it's the underlying architecture that is the problem. So what does this architecture look like more in practice? Well, it comes down to these 4 pillars. Starting with the first one, which is of course revenue generation. Now this essentially is your sales and marketing teams. They are the ones who keep the lights on, consistently delivering new revenue and finding new customers. But the goal here is not to hope and pray that they'll find someone, it's to build predictable, repeatable revenue generation. It's about having marketing campaigns that can go out without your approval or having sales deals that can close without you being in the room. Ultimately, it's about having a pipeline that you can forecast accurately and not just hoping that the numbers are correct. And here's where a lot of owners get trapped. They become that sales system. Like I mentioned earlier, they feel like they need to be in the room for the deal to close or else you won't generate any profits. And that's fine if you're just starting out or you want to keep it as a side hustle or consultant, but that's not a business at that point. Pillar 2 is value delivery. This is how you actually deliver on the promise you made, whether it's goods or services that you're selling. And the key here is consistency. Think about Starbucks, right? If you go to New York, Tokyo, Paris, wherever in the world, if you order a simple latte, it's going to come out the same way. And why is that? Because they have the systems and pillars in place. They have standard operating procedures that they follow. And of course, they are regularly training their employees to follow these procedures. If your current value delivery system is dependent on one rockstar employee, you don't have a pillar here. You're basically just taking a gamble. Okay, pillar 3 is resource management. This one covers all your resources, which can include the budgets, the finances, the tools, and most importantly, people. This is where things probably tend to have hiccups in your organization because, as you know, life happens. Someone needs to take a sick day. There's a death in the family or someone really needs a vacation to desperately recharge. What's important here is how you handle these resources and how different things are allocated. Having your finance team be behind on payroll is not a sign of trust, or having 2 developers take off at the same time can delay those project milestones. So it's important that you're constantly looking at your team and workforce and allocating the resources as necessary. Now, your 4th pillar is the growth infrastructure. This is the long-term view you should be taking, looking at what employees you should be hiring for future roles or future functions if you need them, establishing partnerships, and trying new initiatives. It's what sets you apart from your competition 6 months from today, because as we know, things are constantly evolving. Neglect this and you'll never be able to level up. Now, there's a bigger point here to make, and that is that all these 4 pillars work together almost like gears in a system. And what keeps these gears lubricated and moving smoothly is the people. Making sure you have the right people, making sure you have people that are happy, and making sure that you have people doing their job right. Okay, so we have the architecture, we have the pillars, and that's really only half the battle. Next, you need to move to a point where you can start delegating things. And this is where most owners have difficulty, because here's a harsh truth. In a lot of companies, the owner or the founder is the biggest bottleneck in the company. They feel like they need to be CC'd on every email, sign off on every invoice, and of course, they are the fallback when everything goes wrong. And while it's important to maintain control and interest in the business, what you're doing is essentially creating a very fragile environment. Here is a mindset shift that you should be adopting. Every function in your business should have one person for sales, one person for marketing, one person for finance, etc. And I don't mean one person in the department, but one person responsible for that department. You're trusting them to achieve the outcomes that they set out, and you're trusting them to get the job done. And this is where you start to shift from being the owner-operator to the orchestrator. Think of it like a conductor in an opera. Of course, they can't play every single instrument available. That would be impossible. But their role is very important, as they are the ones who control everything and make sure that everyone is playing in harmony at the right time. That's essentially what you're aiming for. But this only works if you have visibility. Here's an example to illustrate that. If you're working at a company with multiple software developers and you have quite a few of them taking off around the same time, that means the new feature or bug release or what have you will probably have to be delayed. And that, of course, in turn delays getting new customers or pleasing current ones. But that's why having a tool like Vacation Tracker makes this whole visibility issue go away. You'll quickly see who's in or out or who's taken off at a moment's notice and always be up to date. And it's not just you. Every team member can have access to a tool like this where they can see their own time off or when other teammates are away, so they could plan accordingly. Okay, theory is nice, but how do you take the time to actually implement this? And this is where most owners freeze. They know they should be delegating. They know they should be creating systems, but they feel like it's too overwhelming and they don't know where to start. And herein lies the progressive handoff strategy. I like to picture it as almost like a relay race. You're not just throwing the baton at the next person in line. You need to practice. Do a smooth handoff, and only when you feel confident and you've gotten the handoff correctly, then you move on to the next one. And it's the same concept here. You're going to start with one function, be it sales, marketing, whichever you feel the most confident about, and you're going to do the handoff and practice it. Then, only then, when you feel confident, you can start moving on to other functions. This all happens in 3 phases: map, assign, monitor. Within the map phase, you are writing down everything when it comes to tasks, resources, people, projects, etc. It's going to be overwhelming and a lot, but the goal here is to get everything outside your brain and on paper on a document so you can actually map out what needs to be done. The next phase is, of course, assign. You're going to start taking some of these functions or taking some of these tasks or taking some of these workflows and assigning it to the correct people. And I say assigning as in you're going to work towards them to build the responsibilities, not just throwing it in their face and saying, hey, you do this, because that is a form of micromanagement and that's not going to work. And finally, the last phase is monitor. This is where a lot of entrepreneurs or founders really trip up, because of course you should be monitoring the system and seeing how it's working. But a lot of times they feel compelled to step in the second something goes wrong. And I'm urging you not to do so. Give it time to work itself out. And if it truly gets to a point where you do need to step in, fix the system first and then worry about the person later, because it's going to be demoralizing if you have to step in every time. And as I mentioned earlier, take your time with this. Don't worry about doing all the different systems or all the different functions at once. Go one at a time as you build confidence and then layer in the other ones. You're probably wondering how long this should take, and really it could take anywhere from a few weeks to a few months, as it's really going to depend on the current business functions that you have. And make sure to avoid common pitfalls. Like I mentioned earlier, don't do everything at once, as it's going to overwhelm your team and the different team members. And another big one is to make sure you document everything, because if it's not written down, it won't be remembered. Done right, each successful handoff is going to give you more breathing room and get you that much closer to autonomy. Okay, you've delegated, you've established your systems, but how do you know if it's working? How do you know if the business is actually running and preferably thriving without you? Well, you measure it. You should be measuring these 4 key points. Decision speed. Are decisions being made without your involvement at a rapid pace? Problem resolution. Are problems being resolved without you having to interfere or without them being brought up to you? Revenue consistency. Are you able to generate revenue on a consistent basis without you being in the room, i.e. being part of the sales deal? And lastly, the customer experience. Are customers even noticing that you're not even there when things take place? If you said yes to all of the above, congratulations, you've achieved the first level of autonomy when it comes to your business. But the next thing you need to focus on is the efficiency of your workplace. Now, projects are getting out the door, but can they get out the door sooner? There's people workloads who are working too hard or too little. Are you able to have people take off on vacation without it posing a problem? If teams are able to plan around each other, work together, and crush their goals, then you know they have a business that's stable. But of course, you want to make sure it's not just stable, but growing without you as well. So the key here is going to be progress and not perfection. Having benchmarks as a yardstick that you can measure against to see how you're doing. And of course, setting targets so your employees have something that they can work towards for continuous improvement. Here's an example. If you notice that you're stepping in maybe only 60% of the time when it comes to customer complaints, maybe set a target for next quarter that's around 40%, and then keep shaving down that target until you get to a point where it makes the most sense. The same goes for overall workforce efficiency. Do you feel like you have enough team members in place to achieve the features you want to create? Are you missing deadlines because too many people are taking time off? Or are you able to accomplish what you can with your small and nimble team? All these are great questions to ask yourself as you constantly reevaluate and try to hit the benchmarks that you've set in place. And now you have the full blueprint to build a business that runs without you. Now, you may have noticed how often I mention people, and that's because having the best people and retaining your top talent is going to be critical to having your business scale and grow. Because at the end of the day, a business is a people game. And if your top talent is consistently leaving you, well, you don't really have much of a business left, you have a job. Which is why in this video, I go over the exact reasons why your best people leave you and the psychological drivers behind them so you can make sure to address them. I also make sure to go over 4 main things that you need to look out for and walk you through step by step so you can prevent it from happening. Hopefully, I'll see you in that video.